They still say I love you every morning. They still sleep in the same bed. They still share the same last name, the same home, the same life. But something is different now, and they both feel it. It's not a fight. It's not an affair. It's not even a problem they can point to and say, that's it. That's what broke us. It's something quieter, something slower, something that crept into the relationship the way fog rolls in at night. You don't notice it happening, but by morning, you can't see anything clearly anymore. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it relational drift. And the terrifying thing about it is this: it doesn't happen to couples who stopped loving each other. It happens to couples who love each other deeply, but stop tending to that love. So here is the question that this episode is going to answer. If two people truly love each other, why do they still grow apart? What is happening inside the human brain? What is happening inside the relationship? And most importantly, is it already happening to you right now without you even knowing it? Stay with me, because the answer will change how you see your relationship forever. There is a particular kind of loneliness that nobody warns you about. It's not the loneliness of being single. It's not the loneliness of heartbreak. It's the loneliness of lying next to someone who loves you and feeling like the distance between you could swallow you whole. This is the loneliness of growing apart, and it is one of the most common, most painful, and most misunderstood experiences in modern relationships. Because when most people imagine a relationship falling apart, they imagine something dramatic: a betrayal, a blowout fight, a moment where everything shatters and both people know this is the end. But that is not how most relationships die. Most relationships don't end with a bang. They end with a slow, quiet fade. Two people who once couldn't imagine life without each other, slowly, imperceptibly, without ever meaning to, become strangers who share a home. And the most heartbreaking part? They still love each other. They never stopped. So what happens? How does love stay but connection disappear? How do two people who chose each other, who fought for each other, who built a life together, end up feeling more alone together than they ever did apart? That is what we are going to explore today on the connection theory. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Alex Morgan, and today we are going inside one of the most quietly devastating patterns in human relationships, the psychology of growing apart. Let's start with a truth that most relationship experts don't say loudly enough. Love is not a destination, it is a practice. When two people fall in love, the brain floods with neurochemicals: dopamine, norepinephrine, oxytocin, serotonin. This is what scientists call the limerence phase, the early stage of love where your partner feels like the most interesting, most exciting, most important person in your world. During this phase, connection feels effortless. You want to know everything about them. You stay up until 3 a.m. talking. You text them the moment something funny happens because they are the first person you want to tell. Neuroscientist Dr. Helen Fisher at Rutgers University has studied brain scans of people in early love, and what she found is remarkable. The brain in early love looks almost identical to the brain on cocaine. The same reward circuits, the same craving, the same obsessive focus. That is why new love feels so consuming. Your brain is literally addicted to your partner. But here is what nobody puts in the wedding vows. That neurochemical cocktail has an expiration date. Research shows that the limerence phase typically lasts between 18 months and 3 years. After that, the brain's reward circuits begin to normalize. The dopamine rush of seeing your partner starts to settle. The obsessive focus fades, and what is left is real love. But here's the dangerous part. Many couples interpret this neurological shift as the relationship dying. They feel less excited, less urgent, less consumed, and they mistake the end of limerence for the end of love. What actually ends is the automatic phase of connection. In early love, the brain does the work for you. You don't have to try to feel close, you just do. But in mature love, the brain requires intentional effort to maintain that closeness. And most couples never get that memo. They stop putting in the effort, not because they stopped loving each other, but because they assume love will sustain itself the way it did at the beginning. It won't. And that is where the drift begins. Here is something counterintuitive about the human brain. The brain is not designed to prioritize what is stable. It is designed to prioritize what is urgent. Think about it. When your partner is new, they feel uncertain. Will they like me? Will this last? Will they be there tomorrow? That uncertainty creates urgency, and urgency creates attention, and attention creates connection. But once a relationship becomes stable, once you've signed the lease, met the parents, maybe said the vows, The brain categorizes your partner as secure, known, safe. And the brain, being the efficient biological machine that it is, stops spending as much energy on what it has already secured. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, the tendency of humans to return to a baseline level of emotional response even after significant positive changes. In plain terms, we get used to good things. We get used to our partner. We stop noticing the way they make us feel. We stop being curious about their inner world. We stop choosing them consciously every day because we assume that choosing was a one-time event. And here is the cruel irony. The more comfortable a couple feels, the more vulnerable they are to drift, because comfort breeds complacency, and complacency is the slow poison of long-term love. But there is another layer to this, and it goes deeper than neuroscience. It goes into who we are as people and how people change. Here is a question most couples never ask. Who are we, separately, right now? Not who we were when we met, not who we were at the wedding, but who are we today as individual human beings? Because here's the truth. People change. Constantly. The person you are at 25 is not the person you are at 32. Your values shift. Your priorities evolve. Your wounds heal or deepen. Your ambitions change shape. Your understanding of what you need from a relationship becomes clearer. Psychologist Dr. Dan McAdams calls this the narrative identity, the ongoing story we tell ourselves about who we are. And research shows that this narrative is constantly being revised and rewritten throughout adulthood. The problem in many relationships is this. Two people grow and change, but they grow in different directions. And they don't talk about it. They don't share the evolution happening inside them. They keep showing each other the version of themselves from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, a decade ago. And slowly, without realizing it, they become strangers living inside a relationship built for two people who no longer fully exist. Imagine two trees planted in the same garden. If they grow upward together, their branches intertwine. But if one grows east and one grows west, even in the same soil, even with the same water, they drift apart. That is what happens in relationships when identity shifts go unshared and unexplored. One partner becomes deeply invested in career advancement. The other becomes spiritually driven. One wants to slow down. The other wants to build. One is healing old wounds and becoming emotionally introspective. The other is focused outward, on achievement and external goals. Neither is wrong. Both are growing. But they are growing apart. And in the absence of intentional, honest, vulnerable communication about who they are becoming, the gap widens, quietly, steadily, until one day they look across the dinner table and realize, I don't know who you are anymore. Growing apart is not usually caused by one big event. It is caused by small patterns, repeated daily, over months and years, that quietly erode the connection between two people. There are 4 patterns I see most often. Pattern 1, parallel living. Parallel living is when two people share a home, but live entirely separate inner lives. They are in the same space, but they are not truly with each other. They come home. They scroll on separate screens. They talk about logistics. Who is picking up the kids? What is for dinner? When is the bill due? But they never go deeper. They never ask, how are you, really? What are you thinking about lately? What is scaring you right now? What are you excited about? The conversations become functional. The relationship becomes a household to manage, not a connection to nurture. And day by day, the emotional distance grows. Pattern 2, stonewalling under stress. Life is hard. And couples under sustained stress, financial pressure, career demands, parenting, loss, illness, often fall into a pattern of emotional shutdown. Research by Dr. John Gottman at the University of Washington found that when people feel flooded by stress, the brain's fight or flight response kicks in, and they become physiologically incapable of productive emotional connection. The heart rate rises, the body tenses, and the mind shuts down. So couples under chronic stress stop connecting emotionally, not because they don't want to, but because their nervous systems won't let them. They cope by numbing, by withdrawing, by silently agreeing without ever saying the words that now is not the time for vulnerability. But here's the problem. For many couples, now never ends. The stress doesn't stop, and the pattern of emotional withdrawal becomes the new normal, long after the original stressor is gone. Pattern 3. Taking each other for granted. This one is painful to hear. but it is one of the most universal human tendencies in relationships. When something is always there, we stop appreciating it. We stop noticing it. We stop being grateful for it. Early in a relationship, a text from your partner lights up your brain's reward center. A compliment from them lands differently than a compliment from anyone else. Their presence feels like a gift. But over time, that presence becomes background, expected, assumed, and the partner who is taken for granted, they feel it. Not always consciously, but somewhere deep in their emotional body, they register the shift. The warmth in the room has cooled. The attention has moved elsewhere. They are no longer seen the way they once were, and they begin, slowly, protectively, to pull back. Pattern 4. The Great Unsaid. This is perhaps the most destructive pattern of all. Every relationship accumulates what I call the Great Unsaid. The thoughts, feelings, needs, hurts, and desires that partners never find the language or the safety to express. Small things at first. I wish you would ask me about my day. I feel lonely when you reach for your phone in the evenings. I miss the version of us from 2 years ago. But over time, the unsaid builds. The small hurts layer on top of each other. The unmet needs calcify into resentment, and what started as a minor emotional gap becomes a wall so thick that both partners have forgotten what it felt like to stand on the same side of it. The Great Unsaid is deadly because it creates a relationship built on performance rather than truth. Both partners show up, but they show up as curated versions of themselves, not their full, messy, real, vulnerable selves. And you cannot be truly close to someone's performance. You can only be close to their truth. Modern life has created conditions that make relational drift more likely than ever before. Think about the environment most couples are navigating right now. Both partners working, often in demanding careers that spill beyond office hours. Screens competing for attention at every quiet moment. Social media creating a constant feed of curated relationships that subtly makes your own feel inadequate. A hustle culture that glorifies busyness and productivity and implicitly shames the idea of slowing down to invest in emotional connection. Therapist Esther Perel, one of the most respected relationship psychologists in the world, has written and spoken extensively about this. She argues that modern couples are asking more of their relationships than any generation in history: emotional intimacy, intellectual partnership, sexual passion, best friendship, co-parenting, financial teamwork, while simultaneously investing less protected time in the relationship itself. We expect everything from each other, but we schedule nothing for each other. And there is a specific modern phenomenon that accelerates this drift: the invisible third parties in the relationship. These are not affairs. These are the things and people that silently compete for your partner's attention and emotional energy. The group chat, the work colleague who understands them in a way that feels new and exciting, the hobby that consumes their weekends, the podcast, the Reddit thread, the Instagram account that feels more interesting than the conversation across the dinner table. None of these are villains, but collectively, when they consistently receive more of your energy than your partner, they function as drift accelerators. Because emotional energy is finite, and where you consistently invest your emotional energy is where your connection grows. If you consistently invest it everywhere except your relationship, the relationship will slowly starve. Now I want to go somewhere most relationship content doesn't go, because I think there is a deeper psychological truth underneath the drift that most couples never fully see. Here it is. Growing apart is often not about the relationship. It is about the individuals inside it. When people drift from their partners, it is frequently because they have also drifted from themselves. Think about the couples you know who seem to have grown apart. Often one or both partners are carrying something: unhealed wounds, unspoken grief, suppressed dreams, unfulfilled identity, a version of themselves they abandoned somewhere along the way to be responsible, to be practical, to meet expectations, to survive. And that suppressed self creates distance, not just from their partner, but from life itself. Let me bring this home. If you are listening to this and you are feeling the quiet ache of distance in your relationship, I want you to hear something important. Growing apart does not mean you failed. It does not mean the love was wrong. It does not mean you are incompatible or broken or that the relationship is over. It means you are human. It means life got full and loud and demanding, and the relationship, the thing that felt most stable, most secure, got quietly deprioritized. Not maliciously, not consciously, just inevitably, in the way that all things that aren't tended to eventually begin to wither. But here is what the research and the psychology and the lived experience of thousands of couples tells us. Drift is reversible. Distance can be crossed. Strangers can become intimate again. But it requires something that modern life makes deeply uncomfortable. It requires deliberate slowness, intentional presence, the courage to turn toward your partner, not when it's convenient, not when everything else is handled, but now, today. Dr. John Gottman's research found that couples who maintained emotional connection didn't do it through grand gestures. They did it through what he called small moments of turning toward. A question asked with genuine curiosity, an arm around a shoulder during a hard day, a laugh shared over something small, a moment of eye contact that says, "I see you. I'm here. You're not alone." These small moments are the antidote to drift, not the vacation, not the anniversary dinner, not the couple's therapy retreat, though all of those have their place. It is the daily, ordinary, unspectacular choice to pay attention to the person you love. That is the whole secret. Underneath all the psychology, all the neuroscience, all the attachment theory, it comes down to one simple, profound act. Choose them. Again. Today. In the small moments they will never even know you noticed. Because love that endures is not love that burns the brightest. It is love that shows up the most consistently, in the quiet, in the ordinary, in the tender and unglamorous dailiness of two people deciding over and over that this person, this flawed, changing, beautiful, struggling human being, is worth the effort. That is the connection theory. I'm Dr. Alex Morgan. If this episode opened something up in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one. Carl Jung called this the unlived life. The parts of ourselves we push underground because they don't fit the role we're playing. And those unlived parts don't disappear. They become restlessness, resentment, a low hum of dissatisfaction that we often mislabel as boredom with our partner. When someone says, "I love my partner, but I feel disconnected," what they are sometimes saying, beneath the words, is, "I feel disconnected from myself, and I don't know how to bring my real self back into this relationship." This is why the deepest healing in relationships often requires both partners to first do individual work, to ask themselves, who am I, honestly, right now? What parts of myself have I abandoned? What needs of mine have I been silencing? What truths about my own life have I been avoiding? Because you cannot be fully present in a relationship if you are not fully present inside yourself. And you cannot grow together if you are not each growing individually. The paradox of deep, lasting connection is this. The more fully each partner develops as an individual, the more deeply they can connect as a couple. Not despite their individuality, because of it.